what's going on in James' world right now?
Little bit of kind of the same, but a little different. Not shooting as much 3-gun major matches just because of schedule, but I've been doing quite a bit of the tactical games events. A lot of working out, some health and diet stuff, quit smoking, kind of on a road of improvement, I would say.
Good for you, man.
Thank you.
Dude, so I got to ask about the, switch to, or maybe not the switch, but that addition of tactical games in the schedule. From my perspective, it also seems like there's less 3-gun matches out there, specifically like outlaw matches. The level of like sanctioned USPSA matches has stayed the same at 1. The level stayed the same. So I guess like my question is like, have you increased the number of matches you're shooting, or just like as the 3-gun matches have fallen off, you've kind of replaced them with tactical games?
Well, so after retirement in 2015, where I was running 20 to 24 majors a year, or traveling events, I would call them. I went to probably 8 to 10 for a year or two. COVID shut everything down, obviously.
Yeah.
Now with other events, I mean, I've got 3 major 3-gun events here in Texas. Then we've got onesies and twosies, what we can figure out with the schedule, depending on who's willing to drive to Missouri, or, if we can get into certain matches. But with the tactical games stuff that I put on the schedule, I mean, the first one that I did before the event was even over, I was online signing up for 2 or 3 more events that year. And now I'm kind of building my schedule around that. Because there's way more involved with that. I mean, I can't go from weekend to weekend doing TAC games events. Physically, there's no way I can do that.
So like a lot more recovery time.
Oh yeah. So, I mean, there's been a few, I think on the calendar that are 2 weeks apart. And for some people trying to go to every event, like Bill Cochran and a few of these other people, I would love to go to every event. Physically, it's just very hard to do. And 2 weeks is probably the closest I could turn around and do an event like that. But I'm averaging about 1 a month, and then, we'll have some 3-gun matches in there, local USPSA. We got back into doing way more club matches now as practice for other events. Again, helps that I have a shooting partner that is dying for all the shooting time they can get now. Which now I'm like, they're like, what do you want to do today? You want to go to the range? I'm like, if I have to. Okay.
Yeah, it's much easier to have someone that's like focused on your hobbies as well to do those with you. It makes it much more enjoyable, and also makes it easier to like go and allot that time for it.
Yeah, and we talk about having friends in a network that are also involved in the shooting sports, and it's rare that you have people that are compatible where they have the same availability of schedule that you and I do. So like you pick your shoot buddies and you go to one match and they're like, hey, next weekend we have this match. Do you want to go to it? And some guys are like, well, I got to check with my boss. I got to ask the wife. I got to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, yeah, I'm in. Like, I don't have either of those things to worry about. So we're fortunate, but even at the base level of just having guys that are interested in like, hey, we would like to go to this event this year. Let's all work towards that. And when the time comes, you don't want to be, as you have your suitcase and your gun bag ready to go, like you don't expect to pull up to the other guy's house and he's like, oh, that's today. Like, oh, I completely forgot about it, So yeah, absolutely. It's really nice to have shooting partners or people in the network that are all driven towards the same goal.
Yeah, for sure. So when you started shooting, so we've talked about this a little bit before, but I want to cover it again for people who may have missed that the last interview that we did. But when you started shooting tactical games, and once it's over, you're signing up for your next 2. Like, what was it about that event that made you think like, all right, this is for me. I'm gonna do more. And then I guess like in the last year or 2, like what's made you make all those life changes and really commit to it?
The first event that I shot was at Reveille Peak Ranch in Burnett. And I went into it with an action shooting mentality where I had done a bunch of really physical events before that, coming out of the Marine Corps. Like, I wasn't in bad shape, but I really didn't know how to pace myself for a 12 or 15-minute shooting event. And not just like walking through a stage, like running for 12 or 15 minutes and shooting and lifting. And so I think I went to pick up some sandbags and throw them over a bar. And like the third one in, I tweaked my lower back. And then after I finished I struggled through the 8 or 10 reps of that, and I go to run 50 yards down to the firing line. It took every bit of energy I had to get to the firing line. And once I got there, it was a skinny Sammy or something, like maybe a mini popper at 12 yards. And it was probably the hardest string of fire that I had shot in a long time. And I was like, okay, this is much tougher, and by itself, a 12-yard mini popper is not hard. But under those conditions, I was not ready for it. And so I think more than anything, what drew me into that event was the fact that it exposed me to my flaws immediately. Because, we've talked about this for other events in the years before where, hey, what are you doing before, everybody's getting ready for multi-gun nats right now. Mm-hmm. Hey, what's your practice like before multi-gun nats? Sat in the garage and watched YouTube, or you're like, and sometimes you tell people like, yeah, I didn't shoot at all from the last event I went to before I went to the next one. Now it might only be a week or 2 weeks in between. And they're like, you don't practice? Like, not really. Because when you go to event to event to event in 3-gun, you knew your holds a week ago. Nothing changed. The altitude might change. There's a few things, but like, how to go through a stage of fire. So you don't, like, I'm not having to learn and adapt to it. So there was nothing that made it to a point where I had to actually go work very hard for it. The tactical games, on the other hand, if I didn't go to the gym, I was going to die going through an event. And you could legitimately complete a marathon by walking, right?
Right.
Matter of fact, I did one. And going through and saying, okay, do I just want to participate and have a showing here? Or do I want to go through and be proficient with what I'm doing? And so that challenge to myself, because at the end of the day, if I won the event, like, there's no parade, there's no sponsorship, there's nothing like that. They have a prize table for the podium finishers, but there's no immediate reward to it. So like, the internal reward of this was hard. I'm on a very driven path for these specific things. And at the end, the trophy that I'll get is 100% intangible. There is nothing that I'm going to get out of this. And it's hard to explain to people that I'm working for something that you can't put in the bank. And they're like, well, why would you do that? I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. But that's kind of with all the shooting sports, you have people that are like, hey, you're spending 10 times more than what you're making in this sport. Why do you do this? And like, every time you come home from an event, you're like depressed. You're upset with how you finished. And like, you just like now going to the range and practicing harder and harder. Like, it's an addiction, but but it's probably the healthiest addiction that I've ever had. So.
Yeah, for sure. Especially when you throw in like the physical component to it, right? Because you're improving your life, your lifestyle, your longevity, and you're also improving your, I guess, still call them battles or stage times or whatever you want to call it.
They used to call them battles. Now we just call them stages.
Okay.
We're kind of getting away from the mall ninja aspect to the events.
But you can still be a mall ninja and go, though, right? I want to make that clear.
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I talking with Jared and now Nick, the new owner, I have a pretty constant text group with them. But I'm like, my goals for this year is have a perfect event as far as accuracy. I'm going to wear multicam at an event. I'm going to wear a bump helmet on a stage that absolutely doesn't require it. Just a couple of things. And we've talked about this for other events too, like the Clash Bash type stuff. Mm-hmm. We have people that show up and they are in the moment. It's not that they're role playing, but the stuff that they're wearing for the event isn't necessary for the event itself, but they want to wear it. Whole battle rattle, helmets, night vision, suppressors with suppressor covers, lights and lasers and all sorts of stuff. And yeah, absolutely welcome. You know, like we have no issue with that.
If there's like an acceptable place to do it, that should be it, right? Like it should be like, cool, you can do that here.
Yeah, because I mean, the big thing is what we all want in the community is we want people to be involved. We want people to be happy and come out. We want people to work on self-improvement. And the guy that shows up to an event, matter of fact, earlier this year, we had our university, which is our big training program, had a guy show up, and it's South Texas. It's hot already. And he was wearing full pants, boots, jacket with an undershirt, elbow pads, knee pads. He looked like he was in uniform, which he was. And he did that both days of the event, different matching uniforms every day. And he even knew that it was unnecessary. He knew that like he wasn't wearing fitness equipment and, you know, attire, or I should say. And he knew that people there were looking at him and like, why are you doing this? It's hot. You look, you know, some people might think he looks ridiculous. Well, he had the nerve to sign up for the event, show up to the event, participate, do very well, and he's probably coming back. I absolutely want that kind of guy in the community. Someone that's willing to go, you know, like we get people at this last event in New Hampshire. We had a lady there. I didn't get to interact with her, but I mean, I ran her through events, but I didn't have personal conversations or anything. But I found out after the event that she had worked and trained for a year just to go to the event in New Hampshire.
Oh, wow.
And so like, those are the kind of people we want in the event. Like, hey, someone that's willing to go do something. And you look at some of these people that show up to the events, you know, not everybody is a CrossFit stud. A lot of people are in not good shape at all. And they're like, I want to come do this to challenge myself. And usually it forces them to improve themselves and do other things. But, you know, you ever see somebody jogging through the neighborhood? Like if somebody's in shape jogging, you know, and they're like in very good shape, nobody really thinks anything. But for whatever reason, there's a crowd of people that will like roll their window down and throw a drink at a fat guy running through the neighborhood and like, hey, fatty. And it's like, why would you talk trash on this guy who's putting themselves out there and trying to improve themselves? So it says a lot about the shooting sports and specifically TAC games to have these people that know nothing about shooting. And they're like, I want to get into this. I know nothing about fitness. I want to get into this. And, you know, combine those two things. Like those are two things that you have to work on pretty much nonstop to be good at either of them. And to work on both in tandem is extremely hard.
Hey, you know, I guess my friend Mike and I and a group of people, we couldn't run it without run the Big Bend Blast and Dash 5K running gun that we do like every other year. And each year, like the first year was like a lot of competition people and then a couple like, who are these people? And then each year after that has been like, we definitely have people that it's their first match, which when you're doing a running gun, like you're not in between, you're not necessarily supervised. So it's a little disconcerting. You know, we have extra talks, but then there's also people that it's their first run, right? So like, I've never run a 5K before. It's like, have you ever climbed a wall before? Nope. Okay, this is gonna be a good time, dude. So yeah, but you know, those are the people we want. There is the people that are gonna go and try new things. Like the nature of that match, we only have room for, I think it's like 90 people, just because like there's only so much time in the day. Yeah. But like those are the people that you want there, the people that are going to get out of their comfort zone and want to have an experience, you know. So I really appreciate and admire that about people that are actually going out there doing something new, no matter how awkward it feels, no matter how unprepared they feel. It's a good thing.
Yeah. And, you know, so what I've noticed with the crowd from the TAC games specifically, or the tactical games, is the majority of the people that are there are more likely to put themselves out to a challenge knowing full well that they're going to fail, and they still show up. And they're happy about it, which is crazy. You look at the action crowd, and I've done the same thing with, you talking with buddies and they're like, well, this event is going on. They have a good prize table. This event's going, and, we look at who's showing up and what divisions. I don't division jump, but I know people will, which in this day and age, it doesn't matter anymore. But every time I hear that, they're like, oh, you're going to this match. Well, their prize table sucks. So you're only going to places based on what's in it for you as far as like a prize table. Well, what you're going to pay in travel expenses, match fees, so that you can get a $1,500 rifle, like just stay home and buy the rifle.
Yeah. So you and I went to Gadsden Shotgun Championship years ago, and you drove to my house from like San Antonio area, is that right?
Yep.
So from San Antonio to Round Rock, and then we drove to Iberia, Missouri, shot the match, and then drove home that night. Right? Like, well, I guess we stayed over the night before, but we did that whole thing, and that was like a handshake match. We got some sweet fried rice at the end, but it was a good match. We wanted to shoot a ton of shotgun, and we went. We did it. It was a fantastic time. Chad Francis always puts on a great match, and
very fun.
Yeah, and we had a good time. But like you remarked on the way home, so many people were confused of why we would drive all that way to I can't even remember how long it was. It was double digits hours, but why we would drive all that way to shoot for like a handshake match? It's like, I wanted to shoot the match.
Yep.
I want to go shoot a bunch of shotgun.
Yeah, there's always, you're going to have opportunities where right here in Texas, like I said, we have a ton of events going on, whether it's major matches or multi-sport matches. So I don't really have to leave the state.
Yeah.
The problem with that, what we've seen over now, obviously Texas is much larger than some of these other areas.
All of the other areas.
Let's say within a 6-hour circle of my house where I'm willing to travel to, like we drove this past weekend over to Mike and Land Dissident, ran a club match, a 3-gun match. It was a 4-hour drive for me. It was an 8 a.m. match start. So Tina and I got on the road at 3:30 in the morning. Right. And, Jay was there, a couple of guys, Sam Larkin, a couple of guys. They knew we were going, and we all kind of agreed that I'm probably not going to do that monthly match. Just, I'm not going to put that on the schedule as a regular thing. I don't mind doing it. It was a very, very well run event. But if it wasn't for the people that were involved, I wouldn't want to drive that far for just a single day match.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a 3-gun match that I knew was going to be well run by people that are active in the sports and put on a challenging event. And I'm after that premium practice. So that's where we went. But at some of these other places where if you go to your local club, and you'll have a small handful of people that will only shoot there. They've never been anywhere else. They'll never go anywhere else. And whatever their shooting level is, they might be top dog at the club. Well, then you take them to an area or a regional event, and it's different for them. They don't know how to act under pressure, or they're just not used to being around a higher level of talent. If you're your local USPSA guy and you're just beating up on everybody that shows up with a Galco holster, clearly bought their rig the week before, and they're just like, I'm new to USPSA. What's a member number? I don't know. And that's who you're beating. And then you show up to nationals and you're like, why am I 130th in my division? Well, it's because you're not shooting against talent. And, competition breeds, that's old Marine Corps thing. Competition breeds excellence, right? So
right.
We want to compete at higher levels. And the way we do that is we put ourselves in really hard, challenging events and environments. So showing up to that 5K, if you've never run one, that's a really good way to challenge yourself. And
yeah, for sure.
A lot of people, it's probably like, okay, my heart felt like it was going to explode. I just have to keep walking. And I completed the event. And now they're like, well, if I can drop 4.5 pounds my heart's going to explode a little later in the day. Like, so like it's small steps that make that progress. And we're really excited about that. So, and
yeah, that's cool. So, talking about tactical games here, you've said we several times. So, since we've, last chatted here, you're working with tactical games now in a couple of different roles. And I want to talk about the training first, and then we'll get into Tac2Gun, which you're going to be putting on a match in Nevada, and it's September, right? Early September?
September 2nd, 3rd. Well, it's
okay.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but
okay.
2nd, 3rd is the dates.
Copy. So we'll get to that in just a moment here, but let's talk about the training. So, the type of person that would go to a shooting match is a type of person that shoots, right? Type of person that's going to go to a Spartan race is the type of person that wants to run an obstacle course. Now, from an outsider perspective, I've only ever been to one match, didn't shoot it. Tactical games blends those two. So I would imagine you get some people that are fit, can't shoot, and some people that can shoot aren't fit, right? And you just put yourself in that second category earlier. So what do you do about the people that are fit but need help shooting?
Well, there's a few people that have come into the sport from CrossFit specific. I mean, Jacob Hepner is a prime example of that. He was a CrossFit Games competitor, very well known in the industry. Came in, and I'm sure he had some background of shooting. I don't know exactly what it was, but he wasn't a known competitive shooter. Like, I'm sure he probably grew up shooting guns with granddad or something. But he took what made him a strong fitness competitor and applied that to shooting, and now is shooting at a very high level. I'm sure there's some scenarios that you could put him in that he would probably struggle with, or it'd be new to him.
Mm-hmm.
But like anything else, like, everyone is going to experience something at a different point. So like, you can't expect these people that are athletes, pure athletes, and come into a shooting sport to just pick it up overnight. Like, there is a level of training and proficiency that's required with it. But the people that are good at shooting and have put time into practicing their shooting and having a very regimented training program, and they spend time on gear, they can do that same thing with a fitness program of some sort. So both of those blend one way or the other. The cool thing about this sport is, since it's not just a shooting heavy event and it's not a fitness heavy event, it does blend very well. And now most people, I'm sure you've heard the rumors like, oh, it's a strongman competition, the shooting doesn't matter, or the shooting is just bullseye shooting.
Yep.
Well, I can tell you that the level of shooting that you'll do in the tactical games is no different than any level of shooting you've done anywhere else. Like, we don't put targets out that are unachievable, but we put you in a condition where, like, you have to control your breathing to hit that target. And we don't let you just shoot 95 rounds to achieve one hit. They're standardized strings of fire, 10 rounds, 12 rounds, whatever it is. And so if you're good in the action sports, you can figure out how to adjust to the tactical side. And what we're doing is, people don't understand that. So I'm coming in and trying to explain to people, this is how the scoring works out. When you first started shooting USPSA, you're like, what is this hit factor scoring? I ran faster than this guy.
Oh,
how
100%.
did he beat me on the stage? Yeah. So
that's honestly what I like about 3-gun is I'm not good at math, and I don't have to figure out the hit factor. I just feel like you go fast, you get all the targets. It works.
Yes. So it is nice to blend certain things. And, there's a lot of adjustments that are being made with Tac Games proper, where, they're on their third owner now. The sport has changed significantly since I started shooting in 2019. And knowing that there's going to be, I'm not going to call it growing pains because I hate saying that, but there's going to be adjustments that are made. Well, if you look back at your shooting videos from when you first started action shooting, the degree of difficulty at events has gone up significantly since then.
Yeah.
Your ability has gone up significantly since then. And so if you were to take yourself today and go back and shoot the first match that you ever shot, you would either just blow through the event and just crush through everything, or you would say, this is such an entry-level event. why did I feel so challenged or stressed by this? This was like, it was a target array of 8 targets with no shoots, no hard cover, like 6 yards away. And I still had misses. So it's neat to see that some of the changes that are being made are good. And so you mentioned that you've seen an event, but you don't really know anything about it.
Well, it's like watching Tac2Gun. Like I remember, this is gonna be weird, but I remember watching you on Tac2Gun Nation and thinking like, man, that guy's awesome. But also like I could do that. Like that's what I do at my club match, and I could go out there and compete at that level. And then like I don't know, was it shoot like 2016 or 17 Texas Tac2Gun? We shot on a squad together. I was like, oh no, I can't do that. I have a long way to go. And at that time I was like, it's still, 4 or 5 years into the sport. Right. So like from the outside, like you look at that or you look at anything. And I see this with like new competitors at all, where, the first stage, you're like, hey, I saw you're new. If you have any questions, like I'm here to help you or whatever. Don't feel weird. Everybody's new. I was new. Ask all the questions you want, and you won't annoy me or anything. And most people are like, hey, okay, because we're guys, right? And we can't admit that we need help or whatever. And even if we don't quite understand something, like I'll figure it out. And then usually stage 2, they're like, hey, that thing you said, and you have to. It almost is like you have to be there and you have to experience it to understand it. So while I've watched a ton of Tactical Games videos, I watch all your videos and Jay's videos and Jacob's, and I was there when at the first one that was a Reveille Peak when Tim owned the company. Like I still have not competed, so I can't say that like I have a full complete understanding. And I'm sure that there's a lot of people watching or listening as well that are the same way.
So a couple of things that we're working on. So myself and Matt Gunlock are taking over the training program for the tactical games. There's several levels of the training program where we have a dry fire program that Sal Hernandez does. Jacob Hepner does some fitness stuff. There's actually quite a bit of information from different people about lifting, fitness, nutrition. And I'm not going to speak a word about that because I'm not expert on that. And so we have people in place for those. Well, as you know, Matt Gunlock also retired out of the Marine Corps, was with the shooting teams, same as I was. Mm-hmm. So we both have an extensive background in training large groups of people and how to keep a training program geared towards a specific end mission. I personally have changed what I'm focused on as far as training other people. So for TAC games, for example, we have so many people that are coming in and they are in such good shape that they don't realize how much better they would do if they just shot increment like 5% better. Mm-hmm. There's enough points and everything there. And so trying to just lay out informational videos about how the scoring is done. Good example, maybe 3 years ago, we were down at Nationals down in South Florida, the Tactical Games Nationals. And this is a 3-day event. So this is one of the bigger events, and it's Nationals. And the first event that we start on is a 5 or 6 mile ruck. I don't remember exactly, but I'm standing there with my ruck on with my back to the start line, and I'm facing the group of guys that we're running with. And I tell everybody, I'm like, good luck keeping up, boys. And half of them were like, is he serious? A couple of the guys competed with me, and they're laughing. And then we go to take off, and like I just turn and like just start jogging, my little recon shuffle. And I was dead last on the ruck. Well, a couple of the other guys had gone through, and they put down some really blistering runs on this ruck. Well, then an hour later, we're gearing up for our next stage, and these guys are like dragging ass, and I'm still doing my little shuffle through 9 events is kind of the pace I went through. Well, the next, I took a 50% score on the first event, the ruck. Then the next 2 stages that we shot, I was 100% and then 99.9% on the next two events that day. And I'm there talking with guys and saying, there's one guy that came into the sport. He was an Army guy, now is a federal officer. Very nice guy. He was in extremely good shape, but he was shooting way too fast and giving up a bunch of unnecessary points. And I'm kind of telling him, hey, you're doing great physically. Just slow down and get your hits and do this. And a lot of these guys are blowing it off, and they're like, what does he know? Like, they see me as being last physically on a lot of these events. Well, that night, scores update. We come in the next day, and they're like, you're Gil. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, you're winning. I'm like, I know. But they're like, how are you doing this? I'm like, well, I'm getting all my hits. You were 60 seconds or 30 seconds faster than me on this physical event, but each hit is worth 10 seconds. So I have to miss 3 times or 3 rounds less than you, or 6 rounds, whatever the time is.
Mm-hmm.
And you just see the light bulb start going off, and they're like, oh crap, the shooting does matter. Like, yeah. So like, it's hard to visualize the difference in performance when it comes to shooting. And so
it is a game, right? There's rules to the game. So you can either go into that game blind and just go like all out and, smoke yourself on that first event, mm-hmm. or you can read the rules. You can understand the I guess the challenges set before you and know where you got to hold back and where you got to go accumulate those points, right?
Yeah, it's 100%. It's a thinking man's game in all aspects of it. How you're preparing for the event, what kind of things are you going to invest your time in, and being that the fitness side of the house is usually looked at as the most difficult, because to pick up a 100-pound sandbag or pick up a 200-pound sandbag, if someone told you at the event how to pick up a 200-pound sandbag, you're not magically going to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to invest lots of time and energy to get stronger. But if you don't know how to shoot a stage of fire and you're 50% slower than somebody, and somebody gives you a game plan how to run through it efficiently, you can instantly improve yourself 50% on a stage just by knowing what you're doing.
Dude, that reminds me like years ago at the Pikes Peak Shotgun Championship or Challenge, Pikes Peak Shotgun Challenge in Colorado Springs. The Noveski shooting team was there, and they were teaching like a pre-class, and it was like Casanova. I don't think Romero was there, but I know, Jansen Jones was there. And I remember like when Jansen got to his part, it was supposed to be around chokes, and he like looks at the target, looks at like the crew standing there, and he does this big sigh. He's like, look, nothing that I'm going to say is going to help you in this match. You should have learned this weeks ago. And then he went into his whole thing. I was like, oh, good to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But a stage plan is different. A stage plan is something that can help you in the moment.
Well, like you and I have been at events, and conversations will come up where guys are talking about reload information, and it's irrelevant to the event it doesn't change anything there. But as we're sitting there talking about the best way to go through a stage or certain things, like that helps. And with the tactical games, a lot of the people that are going through there, like when it comes to the action style stages, I get questions all the time. How do I load my mags for this? Full load as many rounds. Like, you're going to shoot more around. Like,
are you talking the Tac2Gun stages?
Yeah. Because it's a new environment for a lot of these people. And so they'll look at a stage and say there's 8 paper targets. They'll load their magazine with 2 rounds per target is what they're required to shoot. And then when they have a miss or something, they go to slide lock and they're like, I guess I'm done. And they holster the pistol and go on to the next portion. I'm like, and seeing that, whether I'm running the event as an RO, I can't say anything to them then. I can't really tell any competitor anything at that point. It's just like, beep,
Right.
But if you're another spectator or another competitor there, you're like, hey, before you go on to this next event, if you notice, all of these people are running through and they're doing the exact same thing that the person in front of them did. And they're all shooting the same time. They're all reloading at the same place. They're all having the same issues. Maybe don't do that. And they're like, I didn't know I could do anything else. And I know that the feeling that they're getting, like the guy who wins the event is not turning around and immediately telling everybody else like, hey, this is what you need to do. And that's pretty common with all of the shooting sports. Is usually the people that are winning an event aren't going to turn around and like tell their direct competition how to beat them.
Right.
Which is strange because, I can't think of a time where I was shooting a stage with, let's say, Jerry Micklick, and he was worried that I was going to beat him.
Yeah, same.
Like he's like, I've got 50 years of experience. Good luck, young buck. And
well, the other thing though is if they have like for example, CrossFit experience, right? Like the CrossFit Open has standards and it has things you need to do in a certain order. You need to do them. So taking that knowledge, applying it to the tactical games, one would assume that the shooting portion is the same. Like you have to do this and like, oh, that guy in front of me did it, so that's what I have to do, right? Like anytime I was ever in a CrossFit gym and I got lost, I just looked at the guy or gal next to me. I was oh, okay, we're still doing that now. So there's that aspect of it too. So I can understand like if you don't know the rules of the game, or if you don't know like the norms of the game, like you could definitely think that. So, but from what you're saying, it sounds like the Tac2Gun portion, which is become like 1 or 2 stages or something at like a tactical games event. Like those seem to be like more like action shooting, like your typical USPSA or 3-gun match, albeit with 2 guns, right?
Yes. And the idea there, that started a while back, Jared, when he took over, when he bought the company, he was pushing more towards a true competitive setting where things were repeatable. All the competitors felt like they knew what they were required of and what they could expect. And we really appreciate that. Well, the idea of going to some of the action stages or introducing more of the action shooting stuff into the event was you come in and this entry level aspect to marksmanship is important, but here's what you can do, because the first action event that we had, or action stage that we had at the tactical games, I think I shot it first thing in the morning. So they would have a time where it was considered a floater at the time. So you had your normal scheduled stages, and whenever you had time in your schedule, you could just walk over and shoot this little side stage. Mm-hmm. Well, I knew that I wanted to focus on my rest and recovery for the physical stuff, and the action stuff was autopilot for me. So I went and shot that as soon as the range was hot in the morning, got it out of the way. It was a 30-second stage for me or whatever it was. And I think at that event, I was borrowing a pistol at the start of the event because my pistol was being shipped back in. It was kind of crazy, but like I got my pistol that morning, went and test fired it to make sure it was sighted in. Okay. And then I shot the action stage. So it wasn't like I had a ton of practice. And I put what I would consider about an 80% rundown. And it was 30-ish seconds. Well, then throughout the rest of the day, we're sitting on that stage or near that stage, kind of spectating. And you hear somebody come through 63 seconds. And the crowd's woo, and they're clapping. And then somebody else come through 64 seconds, 61 seconds. And they get excited again. And they come off and like you hear guys sitting around. They're like, "Yeah, I just don't think it can be done any faster than that." That's it. And they're like, "How fast did you shoot?" I'm like, 30 seconds. And they're like, and you just like their minds explode because they've never seen anyone run it that fast, so they just don't think it's possible. They don't know what's possible.
Mm-hmm. It's the same in 3-gun, right? Like I'm kind of giggling here, not to denigrate anyone who's like in that sport or anything, but like I've been there. That's why I'm laughing. Is like I've been like, oh yeah, that's the fastest it can be done, and then you get to the awards and like holy crap, like that dude cut my time in half. And there's all kinds of things like that in life. It's like you don't know what's possible until you can see it. 4-minute miles, like the easiest example, and that's been repeated hundreds of times over the years, but like you don't know what's possible until you see it. So it's almost like it's kind of silly. You got to be shown what the Matrix is, right? Like you can't actually just be told like, no, you can do that in half the time. You got to see it.
And that's the next part of it too, is trying to show, I've dealt with this for years and years and years, where I go from a very specialized shooting program with the Marine Corps where all I did was shoot and teach people how to shoot. I didn't have to worry about language classes. I didn't have to worry about driving vehicles. I didn't have to worry about anything else. And so when we go train with a specialty unit, those guys are like, you're amazing. We can never do this. Like, well, you can do this, but you have 21 other tasks in your train up to worry about. And so training what I like to call recreational shooter or the entry-level shooter is, some people are intimidated by even you. Like if you go to a group of just your local friends that aren't in the shooting and you want to go have a range day, they're going to be like, oh, I'm not going to be able to shoot as good as you do, Dave. Like you're a professional shooter and you travel and you've done all these matches. And you're like, man, like I'm nothing special. And I constantly think that, like, I don't think I'm anything amazing with what I do. Like if I can do this, you for sure should be able to do this. And,
and that's like the Carol Dweck, I think is her name, the growth versus fixed mindset, right? Like I'm of the firm opinion that you can do anything if you train enough to do it. And if you acquire those skills and then practice those skills. However, like I still find myself, even though like I know that intellectually, I still find myself thinking like, man, I'll never get to that level. But it's just like, you just haven't put the time in. You got to focus on that. You got to put the time and energy into it.
Yeah. And there's a lot of things where I know that I'm not going to put any time or attention into certain activities. And so in that case, I'm completely okay with being like, yeah, I'm never going to be a brain surgeon. I could never be a brain surgeon. And what I mean by that is I am not going to put any time and effort in going to medical school and doing this. Like I enjoy other things. I enjoy being kind of lazy. So, but once you have people that are in the space of working on their physical fitness, working on their shooting ability, well, now where do they go? Because when I started shooting, even though we had the internet, there wasn't a ton of resources out there available. There was a couple of guys in the industry that were doing very early head cams or something. Like you could see them shoot through a stage, but it was grainy. It looked like they took a cell phone video through a toothbrush. Like, I don't know. And it didn't really explain what they were doing. And now there's hundreds of thousands of videos of how to quad load a shotgun, how to do this, this, and this, and everybody's practicing those things. But what's lacking with the amount of information coming around is people that are willing to put that information in correct perspective. So all of the people over the years that quad loaded in their basements to set, I can drop a quad load in 1.4 seconds. And they're just super fast with it. And then you go watch those guys shoot an event and they do 2 or 3 extra quad loads because they shot so crazy at the event. And it's rare that you have somebody that steps in and says, hey, it doesn't matter how fast your quad load is, as long as you put the right number of rounds in the gun, and every round that goes in the gun hits a target. Like, in the world of shotgun, when you finish a stage with a tube gun, you should have a round or be at bolt lock.
Yep.
Like if you have 6 rounds in the gun, that's wasted time. And, that's kind of where I've been getting frustrated over the years. And now I just want to kind of mold and massage people like, hey, this is the absolute best way to do this. I want to give you as my direct competition every advantage possible. I want to show you what training program I'm on. I want to show you all the tools and resources. Like I don't want to beat you because you just got into action shooting last year. I don't want to beat you because you had the wrong ammo or you didn't have a muzzle brake or something. Like I want you to be on your best game, and then I beat you, and then my win now is worthwhile.
So how do you do that then in the training arm of the organization?
So we have a couple things already in place, and I was kind of frustrated initially where I saw that the training and the information that was out there wasn't really standardized. So now kind of trying to put everything under the tactical games umbrella of like, this should be a one-stop shop where you come here and the information you have, like if you come to one of our events, I shouldn't tell you, hey, go take a training course from this high-level shooter that's not in our sport. Like we have the information available for you, and not just like, hey, this is what you need to get started. Good luck. This is what you need to be at the highest level in the sport. So we have our affiliate program right now, which we've been working on. Matt Gunlock and I are working on that. So I think we have 8 or 9 groups around the country. We used to run skirmishes, which were like a club match. Now we're bringing skirmishes back eventually, but as of right now, it's just a training day. So those regional clubs will have training curriculum that's written out by us, and it's geared specifically to what you're going to see in actual tactical games events. You'll have a series of shooting drills that will be incorporated into a stage. They are going to work on the fitness, but again, I don't personally want to focus a whole lot of my energy on training on the physical side for training students, because they're like, you have to be at the gym Monday through Friday. That's other stuff. Now the information is there from the TTG program, but you'll eventually do a single stage where start to finish, you run through an actual stage as you would at a big tactical games event. And then you'll understand, okay, this is the shooting that I'm required to do. I know how to handle the firearms. I know the loading and unloading clearing procedures. I know how to get a brief and how to navigate through a course. And on top of that, we're going to be kind of massaging the training where I don't want to tell people the best way to go through this event is just to be the fastest person going through there. Like we have to show them how the scoring works out. And like, if you run to the firing line and you can't breathe and then you miss all of your shots at the target, it's kind of worthless. And the best way I've equated that to people, because I've competed with many guys over the years where they just sprint out through an event and they're physically phenomenal, but they have more penalties than anyone else in the match. And I'm like, hey, let's say in a tactical setting, you're law enforcement, you're military, you're doing home defense, whatever it is, you're in the 2A community somewhere. You are really good and you run to this fight. And once you get there, you're dead weight.
Yeah.
But what have you accomplished? Once you get there, you need to be worthwhile. So teaching guys how to pace themselves adequately, that's a pretty important part of it. Also, the shooting that's involved, the training that we're looking at for TTG is not a single sport marksmanship doctrine. So you should be able to take shooting abilities and shooting drills from the tactical games and apply it everywhere, because it's not just the standard, like we're not doing bullseye shooting. We're not doing precision rifle shooting where you're shooting, like it's a mix of things. And we expect that your skills should be able to cover any scenario that you encounter. If you know how to use your firearm, then the scenario that you're in doesn't matter. We're not going to be setting, I talked about setting up guns specific to the sport. And really what it comes down to is, okay, do I have a rifle that runs reliably at this point? Like I'm not going to build a bench rest gun or anything like that. So just go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna swap from there. So you're doing the training days. You're writing the curriculum for that. Are you going to do any kind of like online component? I know that from doing the speed and agility program that the tactical games offered, and seeing that their complete program, there's a lot of online options for physical training. Are you going to be providing online options for marksmanship and that type of stuff as well?
Absolutely. Now, currently, we don't have anything set up for individual one-on-one monthly training or anything like that. I'm looking to scale to that. And something as simple as, hey, we have our annual curriculum that's going out, and our annual curriculum is going to be based on the event cycle for the tactical games. That's kind of how Matt and I are looking at it. It doesn't make any sense to do it any other way. And so if you come into the program, let's say in July and we're midway through the year, there's constant things that you should know all the way through there. So it's not like if you missed part of the year, you're going to be behind. But like right now, as we're getting ready we've got Iowa coming up here next week. We've got the West Virginia team event coming up. And with those things, like we're gearing training towards team training components. We base the training on if we have new implements put into the sport. Like everybody right now, TTG is training rope climbs because they brought rope climbs back. And so it makes sense that just like in 3-gun, if I'm getting ready to go out to Rocky Mountain, I'm going to practice a bunch of really difficult rifle shooting.
Yeah.
If I'm getting ready for USPSA multi-gun nats, I'm going to do a bunch of really fast base shooting, short range stuff. We know the flavor of those events, so we can gear our training to it. The online training, eventually, what I would like to do, and obviously it's going to be based on participation, obviously, as it goes along, but an individual training program where, if we were to put out a specific curriculum or a training event and you go to that event, there might be certain portions of that you don't want or that you don't need. So just like going to anyone's training course, you're getting that curriculum start to finish. You take from it what you need. But with an individual training program, what we'd like to do is you come on, I can look and assess what you're doing and then help steer you in the right direction.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, so let's switch gears again here. Let's talk about Tac2Gun. So you've taken over as match director. Am I correct on that? Is that the?
Yep.
So for years, you've done a lot of training and running matches with the Marine Corps, doing club matches and stuff like that. And you've always, and I don't know if this has been public or just like with me and with Jay, but you've always talked about running a match, putting your signature on it, adding your flavor to it. In the 3-gun space, drop one gun. Here we are with Tac2Gun, and you're making it happen. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah. So it finally worked out, and this is one was more important for me because, as we talked about with other 3-gun events, like wanting to do a single division match, which I think would be pretty cool.
You show up and there's like 300 people shooting open, right?
Yeah. And then you don't have the people crying that the target presentation was different for the PCC shooters and we had to paint for the limited shooters. One rule set, it's so easy for your match staff to follow a single scoring system. We don't have to worry about divisions and people gaming and cheating. Like, you want to show up and compete, show up and compete.
Mm-hmm.
And it never fails. Like, even we're seeing that with TAC games. People are like, well, what about this one little accommodation? Could you make this for me? And we want to accommodate people, but we also don't, I personally don't want to alter and change the event based on everyone's personal opinion on what's going on.
How many balance beams have you been on over your 3-gun career? Touchy subject.
Yeah. So each of the events over the years that are the circus type stuff, USPSA club match, hold this rubber chicken in your hand while you're shooting. Okay, it adds a little degree of just nonsense, and it's kind of fun, but that's not so random. That's like a true skill builder. I need to shoot strong hand or weak hand or whatever it is. It's unpleasant, whatever. But those skills are important. Now, when you go to the events and they have things that, in essence, become a dice roll, now you're matching your performance and you're placing in a match based on luck of the draw.
Mm-hmm. It's out of the shooter's control, right?
It's out of the shooter's control, and we don't want to have that because I don't want you to go to an event and be upset. Like, obviously, if there's weather, we get that. That is a huge one. Mm-hmm. We can't change that until we start building domes and shooting on turf. And trust me, I would do that. Like, I told you my idea for doing a private range and, but
hell yeah.
With this event, the Tac2Gun the idea is that we have a all action match for the tactical games crowd, and not just specifically the crowd, but it is going to be more physical than your average 3-gun match, but it's not a strongman competition. Like at the first event that TTG hosted this year for Tac2Gun, it was a little more physical, and there was different weight divisions. But think to the action matches that you've shot, like Blue Ridge, where you have to climb a ladder onto a roof to shoot. Everyone in the match should be able to do that. Now, you might have some people, one or two people with some serious disabilities that can't climb a ladder onto a roof. Those are the outliers, right? Sorry. Same thing if you have to run 100 yards through a jungle run. You know, some people are going to be out of breath doing that. Okay, but everyone can complete that. We're not putting tasks into play where you have to somehow come into the event knowing how to skydive and rappel and scuba dive and all this. Like, we're not operators. Okay, so we're going to do certain things that are more physical than other events, but everyone should complete it, and there's nothing that's going to break you off physically. So the adjustment is, you know, at the events that I've shot before for 3-gun, where they have you do a sled drag. Well, you're doing a sled drag for 10 yards, and it's tough, but everyone can really get through there in, let's say, 5 or 10 seconds. And the skilled shooters are still going to be good, and they're going to have a small speed bump in their way. And the slower shooters, or the less physically able shooters, are going to still be able to get through there, and it's proportionately going to work out, but it doesn't end anybody's event. And so with the Tac2Gun events, we're looking at more, not obstacles, but might have you hop a wall just like you're hopping a fence. Like, I don't know, that's a pretty real world scenario for me. You might have to be able to drag a dummy, do something, carry an ammo can, or do something of that sort, but it's not going to be lifting 200-pound sandbags. And so having that style of match where to go through the event, you absolutely need to be in some shape. You need to be able to run. You need to be able to, you know, bend, squat, kneel, do all these things. And we're not going to have you do anything that you have to be a Navy SEAL to do. Like, this should be something that the average population can and should be able to do. The shooting, same thing. We're going to have probably more advanced shooting than the crowd from the tactical games has experienced specifically to tactical games. But it's not going to be the most difficult shooting at any, like, we're not, again, at a 3-gun match, like, you should be able to have 90% of your crowd achieve success through each stage.
Right.
That's kind of what we're looking at. So, I mean, the cool thing about the event in Nevada is the Tac2Gun is going to be run alongside a normal tactical games regional event. So the event's going to be Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're going to have competitors that will shoot all day Friday, and then on Saturday and Sunday do the regular tactical games event.
Okay.
And then we have other slots available for the Saturday, Sunday, which is just Tac2Gun.
So is that like they're going to be shooting through on Friday, or is this like a one-dayable match, or is this a 2-day match? Like, what? I have a, you know, like a 3-gun USPSA reference. So like, frame that for me. Like, how many stages, how long is it going to take to shoot, you think?
We're looking at 8 stages right now.
Oh, okay.
And the idea is we're going to have 40 slots available Friday for the Saturday, Sunday tactical games competitors. So people that are already there competing, and they're like, I also want to shoot 2-gun. Yeah. So we're going to let them shoot Friday through 8 stages. So the half-day format that we were doing, 4 and 4 Saturday, 4 Sunday, they're just going to shoot 4 and 4 on Friday.
Gotcha. Okay. And that's cool. That's cool that they still get that opportunity since they're going to be there.
Yeah. Now, the way I see this working out is you're going to have, you know, we got 300-ish people coming for the regular regional event, and at least 40 of those people are going to shoot on Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday they're going to go get broke off physically, which 2 events in one. And then what I'd like to see is, I don't think we're going to have anybody from the normal TAC Games crowd that's just coming to shoot only on Saturday and Sunday. But we might have more of the action shooters, who I'd like to come into the event Saturday and Sunday. And what we're gonna have happen is, let's say you and 6 of your best action shooting buddies decide, oh, we want to come check out this event, and we'll see what this fitness crowd is all about. And you come through, and you guys are going to shoot Tac2Gun on Saturday. And while you're shooting, you're going to have a bunch of these fitness only people, when they're on their break, come over, and they're going to be like, what is this cadence that we're hearing? And they're going to watch you shoot, and they're going to be like, Dave Hartman, you are the most phenomenal shooter I've ever seen in my life. Show me what you do. And then while you're, reload mags, wait for your next stage, you're going to walk over and you're going to watch some guy picking up a bag and carrying it down the range. And you'll be like, what is this fitness game? And you'll see this and you'll be like, that bag is not that heavy, and they're only carrying it 25 or 30 yards, and they're doing it 2 or 3 times. And then they're shooting. Oh, they're only shooting at a 25-yard, 20-yard pistol shot and a 100-yard rifle shot off a tank trap or a barricade. I could do that. And then, we'll get people to cross network and see what's going on. Is the intent, what we'd really like to see. So
I like that.
It's going to be a very large event. And, we're thinking kind of festival type atmosphere. And, there's probably a dozen, maybe more people from the action side of the house that have come over into the CrossFit games, into the tactical games over the years.
Yeah.
Dylan Easley, Mark Roth, Scott McGregor. There's been a few that have come over, and like some that are staying. Yeah. Some that are staying in the sport pretty regularly. And then some that are just like, it wasn't my thing. And that's okay. Like, I shot IDPA once, I tried it, and actually I shot it twice, but enough to, make sure I didn't like what I was getting. And, so going through, having a blend, there's a bunch of people in the action shooting sports that are definitely in shape and strong enough to not only come over to the tactical games and compete, but compete at a high level. And there's enough people from the tactical games that are good enough shooters where they could come over to the shooting sports. But they're like, we're just blending 2 worlds right now.
I love it. That's one thing I really like about doing this podcast is the audience, like a lot of the feedback I get is like they have their sport, but they'll try anything and they want to do other stuff as well. Like when NRL Hunter came out, like a lot of people went and tried that. When PCC came out, a lot of people went and tried that. Like there's plenty of shooting sports out there, and like just want to shoot them all, except for IDPA, but just want to shoot them all.
Yeah. And, as we go forward with multiple events, like I think between the Tac2Gun and the Sniper Challenge, they're going to do one event, and it's going to coincide with a regional event. That way we can put more of our resources towards a single event, have more people there. Because, that's a big part of it is the first Tac2Gun event that we put on, I think was 35 or 40 shooter. It was a very small crowd. And that cost money to run that event. And it cost more money than the event made. I can promise you that. And what we're trying to show people is that, hey, I don't want to put out a challenge and just be like, yeah, it's just something else to water down. Like I want to have a standardized event that people come out to. I like the crowd between the tactical games people, like people that are willing to wake up and go to the gym every day and put them, and they're willing to get in the car and drive cross country to go to an event, knowing full well that they're going to be physically challenged. It's going to be hot. It's going to be unpleasant at this event. And at most they're going to get a trophy, and there's a prize package with the podium. But if you're not on the podium and you didn't do good enough, you're going home with what you came with. So, it is a very special kind of crowd to have people that are willing to do that. And I really, really enjoy that. So I want to make sure that all of those people coming into this event and this sport have all of the resources available to them. Because I don't want somebody to be unhappy at the end of the day and say, well, I didn't know about this, I don't know. I hope it I hope it grows into something pretty big. And my biggest concern is from the action specific crowd. You know, three gunners, as rough as they are, and they talk about, oh, we don't like the rules and we don't like this, and all of a sudden you start talking about prize tables and they just like turn into children, and they're like, well, I want the bigger PMAG, you know. And it's weird to see people over the years that act out of character for $100 prize package, you know. And
yeah, it's weird. It's like God, I can't remember if we covered this when we were talking beforehand, but it's like you always say, like, if you're going to spend, grand going to a match between travel, hotel, and then even more with ammunition, match fees, and stuff like that, just stay at home and buy that sweet rifle that you could have won anyway.
Yeah.
And this, people think I'm full of shit when I say this, but like my first major match was it was a USPSA. It was the Colorado 3-Gun Championship, which was a USPSA match, and I didn't know they had a prize table. Like I was honestly surprised by it. Like I came from running Spartan races and stuff like that, where at the end, like, hey, if Cliff was a sponsor, you get a Cliff bar, but you were guaranteed a banana, and as long as you weren't in Utah, you got a beer.
Yeah.
So like those were the only things you got at the end. And so when I found out about prize tables, I was super surprised. Like, oh, they give you stuff to make your kit better. That's crazy.
Yep. And it's, the industry is kind of changing a little bit too, where, the market's just not there for sponsor dollars. And again, we have so many events that are going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't think of really anything like the return on all these things as far as advertising and marketing. Like the media content that's coming out of tactical games is just through the roof. What's actually very entertaining for me right now is the amount of people from the tactical games crowd that are so over the top excited about this new sport that they're in. They've already been into CrossFit and fit. Like you could look at somebody's page and they've been in CrossFit since its inception, and they work out every day. They're fitness instructors. Very rarely are they posting any of that content because it's like, oh yeah, I'm in shape. I work out. Well, now all of a sudden they're going to USPSA matches and they're getting classified. Tina, I told her, hey, we're using USPSA as premium practice. And then she saw that there was classifications and rankings, and she immediately was like, I want to do that.
I get gold stars. I want a gold star.
And so, every night here's a dry fire session. It's like the amount of stuff that's going on. So like sitting around the house in workout clothes with a gun belt on, doing reload practice. Like, have you ever seen a video of me doing reload practice?
No.
I have them though, but they're 20 years old. And so seeing everybody that's coming into this environment now for the first time, and they're starting to branch out to their USPSA club matches or their local 2-gun matches or different things, because it's local to them, it's fun and exciting, and they're using it to train for the TAC games.
Yep.
But they're also jumping into this other stuff. I mean, we went to Temple Gun Club had a 2-gun match that I shot here 2 months ago. There was 95 people that showed up, all shoot 2-gun. That club is starting to think about reintroducing or introducing 3-gun. They're having a shotgun option. And I'm seeing more and more that the 2-gun crowd is way bigger than I ever thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see how big it is because, like, I have a shotgun and I don't really want to shoot it all the time. Not that I don't want to shoot it, but it is kind of nice going through an event and like having one less gun to carry. And some people just don't have guns. I mean, you go on the forums and be like, what's the best gun? What's the best shotgun for 3-gun? Without getting into all that, like, it's a relatively easy transition going into 2-gun or just single gun matches, USPSA, and seeing the excitement of all these people that are jumping down this road of doing reload practice. They're on the forums asking about what guns and gear is available, looking for training, looking for as much information as possible. And it's and they're not a crowd that's like, hey, I want to know what's the best piece of gear out there for this. Like, they're asking very intelligent questions for very intelligent reasons. If you have somebody that's counting calories and looking at, actually reading nutrition facts, those people are also going to do the same thing when it comes to firearms knowledge. And instead of just being like, I like this gun because it's cool, which is actually, I think, better for the sport, because it's going to kind of weed out some of the nonsense information from the internet, where, you can look up a drill on the internet and you watch it and they'll teach you how to do something. And you're like, what is the practical application for this? There is none. It's like, I do it all the time. I'll post a video of me like shooting a build drill or something. And it's like, most of the videos I post on social media are the hoser burner stages where I'm just like cranking rounds.
Yep.
Because it's fun.
And that's what gets the likes and the interaction too. Like I do a lot of YouTube videos as well, like evaluating guns, and like I don't show me shooting groups. Like, it starts zeroed, because like that is the boringest stuff out there, and you can like see the retention drop when that happens. So like people just click away. But I think you're right about Tac2Gun. Like, we've covered, or excuse me, right about 2Gun specifically. We've covered 2Gun on the show before, and there was a really great discussion that happened in the comments on YouTube of people that primarily shoot 2Gun, or that's their sport. The club match I'm going to go shoot tomorrow, which is what I was just looking up on Practice Score. There's about 50 competitors in that club match, and 16 of them are shooting 2Gun. That's a significant portion of people. It does seem to be regional, maybe, and maybe the south, southwest, or west are more 2Gunny, for lack of a better term. But I do think that there is a future there as well, because you and I've shot club matches together where guys will show up in their Botkin jeans and their little crotch straps and everything. So like, that is a culture that is accumulated over the last few years, and like, people always need a way to exercise their passion, right? And for a lot of people, that it turns into training, where you'll go to like a trainer for the weekend and you'll do a 2-day class and dump a bunch of rounds. And a lot of people, that turns into competition. So the more opportunities for people out there to shoot and have their specific flavor, like, there's Baskin Robbins for a reason, man. There's 31 flavors. So Tac2Gun's one of those. Tactical Games is one of those. USPSA, even IDPA. There's PCC, 3Gun, and 2Gun. So all the more options, the better. NRL Hunter, precision rifle, like, I'm forgetting them all. So
yeah, that's why I was so confused over the years. Is like, even when I was shooting I'm still shooting 3Gun, but the argument was, we dealt with this with the Marine Corps, where people are like, within the Marine Corps staff was saying, what is the application for shotgun? You're training shooting clays and doing this. We use shotguns for trench clearing and door breaching. We're not in a whole lot of trenches currently, but
they're coming back. They're making a comeback. World War III is going to have trenches. Write it down. Dave said so.
And so, it makes sense where you take somebody who goes and takes a concealed carry class, and he carries a handgun, and he starts using some rifle for, it's the American rifle. So we're going to go do this. And usually shotgun gets ignored. And so for those of us in the 3Gun crowd to be like, well, why aren't you shooting a shotgun? Well, like, ask anybody in the United States what they use a shotgun for, and they're going to be like, home defense, maybe, bird hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see like my Dissident Arms KL-12, and they're like, what the hell is this thing? It's a very practical shotgun, and so like, depending on how deep they get into the game, you have a lot of guys that show up and they're in LARPing mode where they're like, okay, I'm wearing jeans and my work boots, and I've got a pistol on my hip, and I've got my home built AR that's slung, and I keep it slung even though I don't need to keep it slung. Well, then they shoot the first match and they're like, this is fun. And then they want to get better at the event, and they start seeing that there's new competition parts for their AR that magically makes their gun feel a lot nicer to shoot. Like, okay, making adjustments, same thing. And when they start seeing like, okay, I'm proficient with my firearms, I enjoy shooting. Now, as I start looking at these other competitions that are very fun, that's where 3-gun comes in. That's where some of these very specialty sports come into play. And I don't know why there's such a hang up with a crossover on any of these. But yeah, with Tac2Gun, I keep getting questions about gear and divisions. And, right now in the TAC games, they have what I like to call weight divisions is really what it comes down to for kind of how strong you are in the division. But with Tac2Gun, we're just looking at simple categories, male, female, and slick. And people are like, well, what if I'm a pro level shooter? Well, then come on out and shoot. What if I'm really good in shape, but I'm not that great a shooter? Well, you're still going to compare yourself directly with everybody in the division. So you're not going to have people being able to hide divisions and being like, well, you're going to acknowledge an iron sight division. No, you can use irons if you want. But the division is the rule set is pretty much anything you want to have on your gun except bipods and bags. You can put dots on everything. You can compensators. You can run drum mags.
You can run compensators.
You can run whatever you want for Tac2Gun.
Okay. For Tac2Gun, okay.
Tactical games proper is a little different, and one of the big issues why we don't allow compensators is just there's too many times where we have multiple shooters on the line at the same time, and muzzle brakes can be a little rough for that. And
makes sense.
It's one of the few division or gear restrictions that they have. We also have a lot of competitors coming from non-gun friendly states. So, there's places where they're not even allowed to have a muzzle device. And basically an A2 style bird cage or something similar is the easiest thing to just be an even playing field all across the board. And, what I tell the guys that come into it where they're like, well, my gamer setup, I would shoot better if I had to. If you're so good, then it doesn't matter because you're going to be shooting against it's the whole same thing with red dots. Well, if I was allowed to use a red dot on my pistol, I'd shoot it better. No, man, I watched you shoot for the last 5 years. You shoot like garbage. The dot, you put it on there. That's cool. Now you can see, but you're still going to shoot like garbage.
Yeah, it's funny, man. People are so weird about stuff like that. And I find people often want to put words in my mouth. Like when I was talking about revamping TAC and, getting rid of the drum, making red dots on pistols, making it like a modern division, which modified division spun out of that. And that exists, which is a total libertarian marketplace thing to do. It's let's just create a whole new division, let the market decide, which it has. But when I brought that up, I got DMs from people that I seriously respect as humans and as shooters saying oh, well, you think that you're going to be better if you put a red dot on your pistol? I was like, well, not if everyone else has a dot. That's not the point. The point is let's bring this game into the modern times. That was the point. And I felt like I talked about that for, pardon my French, a whole fucking hour. And then how did you think that all those things I didn't say was the thing that I meant? It's pretty crazy when you come down to it on stuff like that.
Yeah. It's a tough crowd. You're not going to please everybody. And I know that. But thinking about all of the things that I've looked at as a competitor going to events, I complain that there's not enough couches at these events. Usually it's a first world problem. Now, if I go somewhere and the scores are messed up, or you're changing the rule set midway through an event, or one guy's getting a brief different than the other, that's where I have issue. And that's one of the things that I want to eliminate is, hey, the rules, the parameters that you're playing with, everybody's playing with the same advantage. Everybody knows everything. And so we're trying to do away with this mentality where oh, well, in 3-gun, when you shoot heavy, it's one round anywhere. I think that's at one match.
Yeah.
Like, do you read the rules for the event that you go to? In most cases, no, people don't.
Well, like you said for Outlaw, like I don't know how to get you to say this without saying it, but so I'm just gonna say it and you can expand on it. Is like everybody likes their Outlaw match. They like Outlaw matches until they get to one that has a different rule set than their home match, and it's something that they don't like, and then they have trouble dealing with it. It's like, well, if it was a standardized rule set, you wouldn't deal with that. It would just be the same everywhere.
Usually, people like what plays to their strengths.
Yeah.
So
I like real close targets that are wide open with no shoots at all.
Yeah. Well,
why can't we all have that?
Yeah. Just like, how about somebody else carries me through the stage? I don't have to run anywhere. Like, I like self-resetting stage. There's all these different complaints. But with the rule set, we talked about this was it PCC? I think it was, where somebody at an event, they would just penalize PCC shooters.
Oh, it was Tac2Gun. It was Tac2Gun. Yeah. So my one of the local club matches I shoot, not the one I'm shooting tomorrow, but they the first match I went to, there were pipes out, which are shotgun targets, and it was a brand new Division 2 gun, which was it was the second most. Oh no. It was the most popular division. It was the number one division by attendance. Second was modified, and those were the two new divisions, which, sort of make me feel good about being right all the time. But you weren't allowed to shoot the pipes with pistols, obviously, but you just got a 2.5 second per pipe out there. It's like, why does that even exist, man? Like we're shooting in our division. Like, what does it matter?
Yep. I've talked about this for USPSA when they introduced PCC, was probably generationally for us. One group was able to see that these PCC shooters are shooting a rifle at a pistol match. So we got to slow these guys down so they're not winning. So we're going to put some crazy thing in. We have to make the leans around barricades harder. We have to put harder swinging targets. Well, they're shooting a rifle at a pistol match, so they're going to have some advantage if they're skilled. All things equal. So all you're going to do is
evil.
All things evil. So you're gonna create something to slow this division down, and in turn, you're going to put a barricade up that stops everybody else.
Yep.
And with certain things, like when it comes to the fitness side of the house, there's going to be a point where I can't pick up as much weight as the guy next to me. So that in itself is going to be a separator. I shouldn't be penalized twice for my inability to do something. Now, if it's something that you can control, you can practice. Okay. But realistically, your size and your physical size, your gear, there's going to be some things that change, and we have separate divisions for a reason.
Yeah.
So the rule set should be real simple. Like, everybody engages their appropriate targets, your scores based on your division scores, X, Y, and Z. But, people are still always going to worry about the overall. You're always going to have people jump in divisions so they can walk the prize table a little sooner, whatever it is. And it's not that we can't, or that we're going to be able to get rid of those people. We just know that they're going to exist. And so we're going to put out an event or a match that is fun for everybody to shoot. Like, now I'm doing signups on Practice Score for certain events, and there's 35 divisions. I'm like, oh, all right. And, some people are like, well, it waters things down. I'm like, first of all, it's a club match. There's no pride. What are you watering down? I still get to shoot the match. Now, when you start putting prize tables out there and doing stuff like that, that's where it becomes a problem. And as people realize that, the prize table really doesn't matter. I guess it's
not going to change your life.
No.
Like, if there was a Silverado out there, that would be significant. But nothing out there is going to change your life.
Well, you can't cater to your event winners. I had a match several years ago that I went to, and as we're going through the match, I had a series of complaints things that I would like to see. And this was a relatively new match, and had every intention of like not blasting the match director, but hey, these are things that giving feedback. And I even told him as I won the event, like, hey, I'll give you a couple days before I give you my after action, because I don't want to sit here and sound ungrateful, but like I won the event and I'm not happy about it. Right. Well, in a lot of cases, if you have an event that is good for some people, they're not going to say anything because they benefited from it.
Right.
And the people that are kind of screwed over or don't like the event, they're also probably not going to say anything. They're just going to kind of Homer Simpson disappear into the bushes. And, it's like, oh, well, why are our numbers down? Well, because when this shooter had a complaint, the match director came over and said, just deal with it. And, get bent. And you're like, okay. There was a match that we went to several years ago. You probably know it, where we're asking for what happened. And match director was just like, hey, tough shit, guys. And I don't know that event they're not running matches in Texas anymore that I know of. And yeah, so we'd like to avoid that. We want to make sure that everyone that's coming through the event is happy.
Well, so knowing all that and having those experiences and having those different types of experiences for years, like what type of stages are you going to be putting on the ground, and like what type of shooting challenges can people expect? Because you're going to have a mix of fitness people who are shooting and shooting people who are going to be doing fitness things. Like you're going to have that mix. So what are your shooting challenges going to look like in your stages?
So I'm dealing with this with both the tactical games proper and Tac2Gun. We're looking at how do we create a shooting challenge or a fitness challenge that focuses on certain things. Like it's not just pick up something super heavy or run further, shoot a harder target. We have to create a very specific challenge in each of those. So with the Tac2Gun specific stuff, I like to use scenarios so that if you come up to the stage and you look at it, let's say, here's a pretty easy one. You're sitting in your car. Is it likely that when you're driving your car, you're going to have a rifle in your lap?
Yes. Oh, you mean other people? No.
But you probably have your pistol. And so if you somehow or another had some engagement where you start shooting out of a car with your pistol and then you transition
then get your rifle, right?
And you get your rifle out of the trunk, like super easy for people to look at that and be like, this makes sense. What I don't want to do is create stages that you should be able to look at the stage and say, I see, this makes sense why I'm doing this. I don't want to just unnecessarily create a challenge of, hey, you have to shoot these 3 targets, unload your gun, move over here, reload your gun. Like, what? Why can't I keep my gun? Like,
why would you ever unload your gun if we're in an engagement? Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm definitely not going to do anything where I tell people, this is a real world scenario. And if you don't see the same opinion that I do on how you would engage this, then you're wrong and you get killed in the streets kind of thing. Like, I don't want to be telling people what kind of defensive techniques or tactics they should be using. Like, tactics, one, is just how smart you are in a situation and like how well you communicate with people before or after a situation. Like, that's really what it is. So when it comes to the shooting, the challenges should be, think pistol, action pistol. There's not going to be anything that you can't do with a production style pistol. So if you can go to a gun shop and buy a handgun, that handgun should be adequate to get you through any pistol target that you're seeing or shooting at this event. Are we going to ask you to shoot 100 yards with a pistol? Probably not, but it's not unlikely. If we put a pistol target at 100 yards, it's probably not going to be a small target.
Right.
Like, can you shoot this cow at 100 yards? And like, it doesn't matter what the target is. Like, I could put a plate rack, just have a plate rack as a stage, and the good shooters are going to excel at that, and the less skilled shooters are going to struggle with that. So the scenarios that we're looking at, and again, a lot of it is situational too. Like, for example, the range we're going to, They have a lot of cool features there. And so depending on what the terrain allows us to do as far as running a natural course of fire versus bays. I'm not a huge fan of bay style shooting, but there's a lot of neat challenges that you can put in a shooting bay. But if we have the ability to use a shoot house or a jungle run type thing, some tunnels maybe. Now, I'm not talking tunnels where you have to get on your belly and low crawl through something. I'm not doing that because, for several reasons. But the shooting challenges should be kind of on par with any of your favorite action matches. Like we're going to have long range rifle with your rifle that you have to be able to know your data and shoot out to 5, possibly 600 yards, depending on what the facility will allow for. And everything in there, like again, as we're looking at 2.5 minute stages, everyone should reasonably be able to get through all of the stages that we're looking at. So I know for the action shooters, a lot of them are going to be like, well, what's new to this event that we're not doing? I'm not going to put you on a blue barrel and make it act like you're bull riding. I'm not going to make you shoot in a gas mask. I'm not going to do anything crazy that you haven't done before, but it is going to be a physical challenge and a shooting challenge. And if you're out of shape, why would you expect to outrun somebody who is in shape? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
If you can't shoot, why would you expect to win a shooting?
Yeah, so you're looking for like a specific type of customer for the match, right? Someone who likes a challenge, who wants a challenge, wants it to be physical, and wants to do some good shooting as well.
Yeah, absolutely. If I know this is going to be an issue coming up where people are going to say, well, this event doesn't have a prize table that entices me. And if the reason you're not coming to an event is because they don't have a giant prize table, there's other events for you. If you want an event that is going to be filled with people that are like-minded, that also want to challenge themselves and want to improve themselves, and that are willing to, right now, as we allow it, we allow for coaching. And you know how I feel about coaching, but like the idea is that if you come into an event and you don't know what you're doing, if you're on the clock and I decide to jump in and give you some helpful advice, you can finish the stage and your match is not over. You don't just come off the stage crying because you had a malfunction and you didn't know how to clear it. And you're like, well, my match is over. And you told me about it after the stage was over. Like, thanks for nothing. Now the people that don't need coaching, great. Like, will somebody potentially place 1 or 2 places higher because they had a coach? Possibly. But coaching could be a trap. And what we'd like to see is, I would like to see some of the action shooters come over and think that, oh, well, this is just a strongman competition. Come over and see that, hey, that they are in shape enough to do this, and this might be the catalyst to help them get started on a little better fitness journey. And look at the actual TAC Games events and see like, hey, this is a really nice crowd to be with. There is something to being in shape. And then the other side of the fitness only people coming over and seeing the action shooters and saying, there's a whole new world of gear that I had never seen previously. Here's a new level of shooting. I should look into this and now I want to excel with what I'm doing. Because if we had, I said this on one of the podcasts several years ago, is, wait till the real athletes show up to these shooting events. We're worried about getting outrun by old fat guys right now. Like, wait till young athletic guys come in. Most of the events right now for TAC Games, for the division that I'm currently competing in, tactical, is kind of on par with the elite women's weights for most things. But on certain things, like if you do the 6 mile run or you do an obstacle course, it's a 1-for-1 for everybody. And there's a bunch of events where I'm taking 50% scores to all of the females. And I know that's going to be an ego check for a lot of guys. But it's nice to come in and see hey, this is a different level of performance that I didn't know about from one side of the house to the other.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love the crossover between the two. I like what you're trying to do of, you know, intermingling action shooters with the fitness shooters. I think that's a really cool thing. So September 2nd and 3rd, it's the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it's the Vegas Regional in Pahrump, Nevada, going to be happening at the same time as Tactile Games, Tac2Gun, and it's the Prairie Fire Range, right? And that used to be, the hell was that? What was the name of that?
Oh, you're talking the old range.
Yeah. Gosh.
Gun sight, front sight,
front sight. There we go.
sight.
So Prairie Fire, it's the old front sight. And sign up on Practice Score, right?
Absolutely. We've got, you can look at the event on Practice Score, or you can go to the tacticalgames.com and look at all the event information. They have links directly there. And I don't know why my browser's spazzing out on me as I'm trying to get the link, but
Well, right on. Well, so James, we'll have links in the show notes, and I'll put them on down below if you're on the YouTube. Dude, I appreciate you you being here and talking about this. I'm excited that you're going to be putting on the match and that you're getting involved with Tactile Games training. It's going to be good. Thanks for being here, man. Take care.